Hello, MagMod community. Welcome to another edition of How I Shot It. Today we have Jen Ludwig with Karma Pants Photography out of New Jersey. Jen is one of our favorites here in the office. We've been looking over her work for the last few weeks, and we're just very excited to have her on and have her talk about some of the images that we just find absolutely amazing. Jen has amazing creativity. She sees things in some different ways than a lot of people, and I think you guys are going to be excited to take a look at what she has to talk about today and ask her some questions. And so I would like to introduce Jennifer of Karma Pants Photography. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jennifer.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I literally like little butterflies right now because it's awesome. Um, so we are wedding photographers, husband and wife. I'm the Mrs. Pants. He's the Mr. Pants. And we're out of Mount Holly, New Jersey. We kind of go all over the East Coast, but yeah, pretty much tri-state areas where we're doing weddings right now.
Awesome. Awesome. So Karma Pants Photography. Tell me, that's a very interesting name for a business. How did that come about?
So it's completely unrelated to photography. So probably was like maybe 21 or 22 years old in college, trying to get a job on monster.com. If all of you old people out there have ever heard of that, probably not. And nobody would hire me, even though I thought I was amazing. Um, so I had to think of an email address, which I never had. I know it's so weird, but this is literally when I had no phone, no email. So I looked down at my pants and I was like, who the heck is going to hire me with these pants on? Like, these are college pants. 2 weeks, not washed, dirt. Like, you could see every ramen noodle on there. So I just thought of Karma Pants. I was like, this is to remind me that I need to present myself a certain way if I want to get hired. So about like going forward, maybe like 8 years later, I was at a tattoo convention in Philly, and I saw an old friend that I hadn't seen in like 7 or 8 years. And he's like, "Oh, we should catch up. What's your email address?" And I'm like, "Well, and he's like, "Is it still Karma Pants?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you just remembered that." So about a year later, I was trying to decide on a name for the business, and I just thought if he could remember that after 8 years, then I have to just go with it. Even though it was slightly embarrassing at first because it's such a weird name. But it's kind of paid off because now it's just separated us a little bit, as far as like us being creatives and being ourselves. It's kind of like, okay, well, obviously, because that word doesn't exist. So, yeah, that's it.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, you can definitely see how that name would be a little more memorable in people's minds, and when they see it, they're like, "Oh, Karma Pants," and that's something that kind of stick with them as opposed to just so and so photography or something else.
Yeah.
Like Timothy Irish photography. That's nothing there. But awesome. So talk to us a little bit about you shoot weddings. So how did you get into weddings, and was it something you knew you always wanted to do, or is it just kind of fell into
No.
you into your lap and you just kind of went with it, or talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so as far as not knowing, I don't think I ever thought I would be a wedding photographer. I think in my head, a wedding photographer was a certain image, and I don't need to explain what that image is because I don't want to offend anyone. But I think we all kind of know what I'm thinking. So I never thought, oh, this is what I want to do because I'm just gonna have to like not be creative if this is what I do. So I had been photographing my kids for a while after they were born, got super obsessed with photography again, and my best friend got engaged and said, "Do you want to just shoot my wedding? Because I'm not going to have a photographer if it's not you." And I was like, "No way, I can't do that. I've never shot a wedding." Um, but I decided to do it anyway because she offered to pay for my wedding dress for my wedding. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of money, so I was just like, "Okay, let's do this. I'll shoot your wedding. What the hell?" So long story short, ended up being a really cool wedding. Skateboarder groom, and all the pictures came out really kind of cool. And it just sort of launched me, like everybody just took notice of these really interesting, different ways of doing a wedding, you know, not your typical wedding. So that's it. Sometimes it just takes one little moment in life to change pretty much the course of everything. Um, and then I think that over the next 5 years, I just decided this is my plan. My plan is to be here in this type of work and getting paid this amount or I'm out. That was kind of like what I didn't, and I went through ups and downs, and I hope that there's people out there that are listening that I didn't realize I was going to get emotional. I'm actually getting a little emotional about this. But I did go through a lot of ups and downs in this work. It's very trying to your psyche as far as trying to be true to yourself and then also trying to please the client. And once you get the two to marry and to kind of just come together, this amazing thing happens and you start to love what you're doing. And then you add on the fact that I used to carry around gigantic lights and modifiers in order to get what I wanted. And then you add like something like what you guys have done for our community. And I'm serious, like you've actually done something for us that has changed the way we do things. Then all of a sudden the creativity is flowing more and it just allows you to be even more yourself. So yeah, that's my long story.
No, that's amazing. So thank you for mentioning, that you feel that MagMod has done something for the community and been able to help people out in regards to creating products that make, photography either faster, easier, simpler. Talk a little bit about how MagMod has changed the way you work. Tell us a little bit about what your favorite modifiers are, like you use on a regular basis, and why you use them, and then how things were done before, and then now that you use MagMod, how it's changed and how it's made it easier or simpler for you.
Sure. So I think before MagMod, I had gone through about 452 bazillion pieces of equipment, trying to find the right one that didn't fall off and hit grandma on the head or wouldn't fit through a doorway. Or and I mean seriously, I'm the kind of person that's like gets embarrassed about this kind of stuff. Like I want to be very streamlined and I want to be like creeping in the corner. I don't need this gigantic thing to get the result I want. So I started using, I'm not sure if I can mention the name, but I started using a modifier that is a pretty well-known company that made a grid, and they were Velcro. And I used them for a lot of years because the result of the actual light modifying was great, and it was small. They fell off constantly. I lost them everywhere. I mean, it just, you had to use it because it's all there was, other than duct. I think I duct taped most of them on at some point because I was like, I use it so much anyway. There was just like black tape all over anyway. But then I went to I don't remember which conference, so I'm really sorry, whoever it was, but I think Ludwig was there. And they were using these modifiers, and I was like, I saw him throw the modifier like a foot away, and it was like, boop. And I'm like, what is that? I need to have that right now. And we started talking, and I met them briefly at that. And so that was the beginning of me totally falling in love with your products and then just totally changing the way I operate at a wedding now. So in a scenario where I used to have this giant, maybe soft box with, because I like to combine the soft and the grid a lot to get the wraparound light, but also the very dramatic light. So I used to carry around kind of a big, very expensive strobe light to get that look. But now I kind of find that I can do the same thing with, it took me a little while to transition to be like, okay, that small thing is really going to do the same thing. But sometimes I'll use two of them stacked, like one up higher and one low, so I can still get like the dress or whatever, and then the faces in order to get the same look. And it's still easier than having a big softbox or a giant gridded, octabox. So
Definitely.
completely changed the way. And also people are more likely to be themselves, I feel like, if they're not confronted with this giant piece of equipment.
That's a
Right?
great point. Yeah, for sure. They don't have this thing in their face and they're like, oh, what's this?
Right.
And you're able to be a little more conspicuous
Right.
and not make them feel like they're having
They
to
feel
stand
like
in a certain way. So,
wedding clients as opposed to like trying to be a model. Like you're not a model.
exactly.
Oh,
Definitely.
by the way, my son just walked in. Sorry. Hi.
So awesome. No, that's great. Well, that's exactly what we love to hear. And I feel the same way. Just being able to use those products and not have these big, huge boxes either blocking people's view of the bride and groom. You're able to still create and not necessarily take away from the guest experience as well, because you're able to have smaller modifiers that don't interfere or don't block. And so it just kind of gives everyone a more well-rounded experience at a wedding as well, which I think
Yeah.
is awesome. So, all right, let's jump into some of your images if you're ready.
Oh,
All right,
sure.
perfect. Cool. So this is our first image, and I absolutely love it. It's amazing. This bride here looks like she's getting her earrings on, kind of final stages of getting ready. So talk to us a little about this, how it happened, and what products you use or what modifiers you use to make that.
Okay, so yeah, I'm glad you picked this image because I have a love for this image, just because I don't know, it was a really normal looking room. I think all the walls were like a um, taupe color, like a darker taupe. There's a window to the left of the image coming through the face of the mom on the bottom left of the corner. That's ambient light. That's all. The rest of the room on the other side falls off to black. So what happened was I always walk into a room. I'll just get this out of the way. I always walk into the room with my feed light attached to my stand or monopod, depending if I have a lighting assistant or not, um, every single time. And the reason I do that is because literally the minute I get there, I'm already like, oh, that looks so good. That looks so good. I just wish that I could shoot my flash off. So I expose for the ambient light immediately with one camera. I have a trigger on that camera or a flash, and then a flash on a stand, expose with usually a 16th. Almost every time it's a 16th. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm afraid I'm going to run out of power and I want to be able to go ding, 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 ding. So I'd rather up my like ISO just a little in order to get that. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I do it. But so for this scenario, she's getting her garter on. She's putting her earrings on. The garter is on the bottom right in the hands of the person. And I saw the girls lifting up her dress because she had this giant dress on. And I was like, that's such a cool shot. So I told my assistant, I was like, please, like, hurry up, put the light up. I want it really high, pointed down, gridded. She did that in probably 3 seconds. I was up on a couch or a table or something in front of her and just to get all the faces. And I took the shot, got home like maybe the day after that wedding, looked at this image and I sent it to my husband. I was like, I think I got something here. Like, I think this is really cool, right? And he's like, yeah, it's cool. Sometimes I don't always know. So, yeah, that's how I got that image. And I think a lot of people, I've had this image critiqued before. Um, and I was told it doesn't look like a real moment. Um, I can assure you it was a real moment. It completely did happen organically. Um, Sometimes when we create something so the light is like that, I feel like it sometimes comes off not authentic. So even though I find this image to be really successful overall, I still every time I go to a wedding, I think about this photo and I'm like, I gotta make sure I hit that right moment. But I do love the light and the composition and everything of this photo. I just always trying to make it just like that much better, just a little. But I think that as far as lighting setup, like this is the easiest setup. Anyone can do this setup, and it completely changes the feeling that you get from the image.
Yeah, it's
So
great. I love how you're able to use the light and the grid to really focus on her and separate herself from her bridesmaids, but also being able to just use light to hide the rest of the room. Like you said,
yeah,
the taupe walls and those aren't, we're in rooms a lot of times that aren't always the most attractive. And so being able to utilize your flash and modifiers to create an image to hide some of those and create art out of it and really focus on what you want to focus on is key, especially in weddings and really it's great to have products to be able to do that with. Um,
yeah, for sure. I've just
awesome.
always been like really attracted to light in general my whole life. I can remember being like a little kid sitting in the room and playroom, and like we all grew up in dark houses in the 80s. Everything's like paneling and dark. And I just remember like light shafts coming through the windows and seeing the dust sparkle in the light and like just being fascinated by that. And so I don't know what it is about light, but I feel, and maybe other people feel this way too, but it's just some light makes you feel warm, some makes you feel cold, some makes you feel sad, some makes you feel happy. And I really feel like the way you change light in your life, like whether it's in a bedroom or this, that, it really can change completely how you feel about something. So I try to use it as much as I can at a wedding. And more I'm finding it's not there already. I need to put it
That's
there.
No,
So
I love that point. That the point you said about using light to create an emotion or a feeling that is or isn't there. I think as photographers, we need to look at that more often and try to figure and evoke emotion out of the photos that we create. And being
yeah.
able to use light to evoke that emotion is key and is important. I love that phrase. I love what you said about that. Awesome. Well, let's move on to the next image. This is one of my favorite images. When I saw it, I loved it. Um, so talk a little bit about this. I'm really interested to hear how about this came about.
So okay, this photo. Sorry, this is like it was like a year ago. Um, so this wedding, this was we talked a little bit before. This is an elopement wedding. That then they hired me for their wedding 6 months later. So they were very trusting clients at that point. So their wedding was on a winter day. I think it was like in the middle of December in New Jersey, and it was 4 degrees, I think. Every single person in my crew was covered in down comforters, I think. I don't know. We were just like head to toe, like in warm stuff. So we could only be outside with them. They actually went outside with us, but we only went out for like maybe 20 minutes before everybody was just frozen. So now it's dark because it's December, sun goes down. So we go inside and they have this like really long table inside. It's probably like 20 feet long in this old inn. And all the bridesmaids and groomsmen are sitting around it and they have it all set up for dinner. It's like got like wine glasses and stuff. And they all start pouring champagne and whatnot. And I'm like, this could be a really cool shot. Like I know it's set up, but this could be really cool to have them toast to their to the bride and groom, to their friend. So I did pose them for this photo, which I'm proud of and I don't really care. Because I know a lot of
That's
people are
okay.
purists. But when I see something that I think has a lot of potential, I'm going to do it. So, um, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So, so I set them up along either side of the table. So they're all stacked. There's maybe like 5 people on each side. I don't know. And then I think Easton from Blu-ray was shooting with me that day. And he was standing to my left with a gridded speed light, as always, pointed up and down through the glasses and also into their faces. So it probably took a couple tries to get it right because the glasses and everything in the way. But so in order, I always like use movement in my photos. So in order to get a more authentic moment, I felt I think one of the groomsmen say something. So that you can see the groom is looking at him and whatever. So it's actually a moment. And, I think a lot of people are scared to do stuff because they feel it's cheesy or whatever as it's happening. But if you actually like help them along with like, well, why don't you say something nice or whatever? This is cheesy. Like, let's toast to something. Once you do that, I feel like, and I don't do that all the time, trust me, but once you do that, sometimes it really can bring out emotion. So they do have an authentic moment. So and it becomes a memory for them. So
Definitely.
yeah, so that this is a post photo, and I'm super excited about how it came out. So.
So you used just a single light with a grid. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yes,
Awesome.
that's it.
And then Kenny had a question. I'm not sure if he was asking for this photo or the photo previous, but for the photo of the bride, that was the same setup, single speed light with a grid as well.
Single speed light.
All
Exposed
right.
for the
Awesome.
ambient. Exposed for that ambient. I like to shut down my shutter speed and what I mean by that is like a 200th almost every time, because I really like black, uh, like getting rid of stuff.
Right. Kind of
So,
canceling out that ambient.
yeah.
And I love what you were talking about, how as photographers, again, we got to kind of mix our moments of candid moments, and there are a lot who they do strictly just happening as the moment happens. But also, there's times where we need to be able to create that moment or create some,
Sure.
images that remind bride and grooms of moments of their wedding day. Even though this was posed, a lot of people will pose it and they forget that part that you said about directing either a groomsman or a bridesmaid or even just the bride and groom,
Creating
directing
a
them
moment.
to elicit that moment. And so you created an image here with the flash and the grid, but also directing that groomsman to say something to
Yeah,
create a
I still
real
remember how it
authentic moment.
happened because it was so long ago. But sometimes if you wish something, it comes true.
That's very true.
So if you kind of lead them into a situation and egg them on a little bit, sometimes stuff just happens that way. Um, you know, yeah. So
Hmm.
I know that everybody has their own way of doing things. I don't think there's a wrong way. I think that clients hire who they want because of the style and how they do it. I
Right.
think that in this case for me, um, I could have easily stuck them in a corner of that hotel with a pretty wall and taken a pose photo of them kissing, or I could do a pose photo of everybody cheersing. They're both posed. So to me, the idea that I'm capturing like the fun that they're having with their friends is just as important.
Definitely. Definitely. Cool. Let's move on to the next one. While we're doing that, Matt Gruber wants to know if he can have your autograph.
Matt Gruber knows he has my autograph. Hi,
Awesome.
Matt Gruber.
Cool. So this image, this was awesome, and obviously a little challenging. So I'm interested to hear how you overcame the obviously the angle from where you're shooting from, on top of being able to get the flash on the couple. So talk a little about this for us.
Okay, so this was added last minute, so I don't have like notes on this one. But okay, so a little backstory on this, and I'm telling this for a reason. Um, this couple is super spacey, and they're like 20 years old, really young. I tried to talk them out of getting married, but they love each other a lot. So they showed up an hour and a half late to a sunset shoot. It was hilarious. And so I think I brought one flash. I was having a lazy day. I brought one flash with a grid, and I thought that we're not even going to do these because we're just going to do sunset. It's going to be beautiful, whatever. Because I do use a lot of natural light too. Um, so they show up late. I'm having a breakdown. So I was like, okay, let's try this out. So we get them up into the Ferris wheel, and I knew if I was in one of the buckets or whatever, I would never be able to get a shot of them. I couldn't figure out a way that I would ever have a clean shot of just them. So I decided to stay on the ground and shoot up. Um, we gave them a speed light, and I didn't want him to hold it and like point it at himself. Like I would not, that would just look weird, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to clamp anything onto something like this. It's a hazard at that point, so don't want to like hurt anybody. And I had thought about that, trust me. But it's good to think things through, kids, because I thought about that and then I was like, well, now what if that falls from 100 feet up and hits somebody? Okay, so don't do that. So what I had them do was the most unflattering light ever. I had them hold it underneath their faces and shoot it up. They got so into kissing each other that I don't think they held it up there the right way the entire time. I took about 100 shots, maybe more, and I think I got two.
Hmm.
So, and I knew it as I was shooting. I'm like, I'm not getting this. I'm not getting this. But just keep trying. Just keep like moving it around and trying, and eventually you'll get it. I think it works. It's different for sure. So, and
No, definitely.
colorful.
And that's
So,
another great point of if it doesn't work the first time, just keep trying. Like if you have a vision and you're pretty positive it's going to work, you got to shoot through and just keep shooting for it. And you only may get two shots out of the 100, but
yeah.
those two shots are the shots that you were looking for. Um, and it just kind of teaches a lesson in perseverance and just kind of working through the frustrations and the challenges to figuring out how to make it work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but not giving up after the first try is, I think, the key there, and just to
Yeah, I
create
was
those
sweating.
images.
I think I was
So
sweating. This was a hard one, but it's like sometimes you don't know until you get home either.
that's
You look
true.
on the screen, you're like, oh my God, I did get that. So yeah, just shoot. They'll never know.
Awesome.
They'll never know the difference. If you don't get this shot, they'll never know. You know what I mean? So
Right.
just try.
For all they know, you nailed it on the first try, and you're just amazing and like Superwoman, and you like I knew what I wanted and I created it, and we're done. So awesome.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
just
move on to
focus.
this
I
one.
also, like a lot of other people do, I don't show people the back of the camera. Unless they ask or unless they seem very nervous and they think they're all like ugly or something. And then I'm like, are you kidding me? Look at this. You look amazing. Very, I don't, because I don't want to set up this like false idea of what they're gonna get. So
Exactly.
I want them to be as surprised as possible. So I usually don't show them.
Or you may end up not using that photo because it didn't turn out the way you wanted it. On the
It could
back,
be
when you got
slightly
it
out
on the
of focus.
computer, the back of the camera looked different, and you're like, it didn't quite work out.
Right.
Then you show it to them, and then you don't deliver it, and they're like, wait, what about that one you showed us,
Hmm.
and it's not here, and they start asking you about it. It just creates
Yeah.
issues down the line.
Yeah.
So a lot of the questions we get in the community are, how do people set up lights for reception lighting, and how do they light the receptions? And I love the motion and the energy and the excitement in this photo, and I just loved how it was lit as well. So I think this is a great example of a way you can set up your lights to create some awesome reception images. So talk a little bit about how you set up here, and then maybe through your technique of getting the light blur.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to like say this to all like the people out there that are struggling with receptions. They are hard. And anyone who says that they're easy and that that's their time to relax is not telling the truth. I don't think, or they're not trying to get amazing light. Receptions are constantly moving, constantly changing. Every single room that you walk into is different, and it could be different from the last time you shot there. So you never assume that you know everything. Just try to make some time if you can to set up your lights and get it perfect as much as you can before everything starts. In this case, I was in a barn, like an old estate barn, and there were beams, as you can see the beams in the middle of the room everywhere. So that was fun. So I set the lights up across from each other, so cross light. There's one behind her, and there's one probably like slightly to my camera right. Just enough so it doesn't hit the beam and I get the middle of the floor. And in this case, definitely gridded. And I know that one of them had the I always say boob. Am I not supposed to say boob? The
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
sphere. The sphere.
The sphere.
Yeah, I don't call it that. So, by the way, if anyone finds any boobs, they're mine. I lose them everywhere. Um, I've lost them at every single wedding in the last year. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I think the one in the back is actually the one that has the boob, if I remember correctly, because I had that set up in the front of the. Yeah, it is. Just trust me. And then the one behind is gridded. So why did I do that? In this case, it worked out that she was facing me in that direction, so that's why I would rather have had the sphere, I think, on the other side. But listen, things are moving. Motion. I almost in every photo, I like to include some kind of motion, even if it's a portrait, um, because I feel like it's more real. So to show motion like this bride was crazy. Like she's crazy. She was doing some like hoedown thing, and everybody's freaking out because she's from Georgia and they do this thing. And so she was, we're in Tennessee and she's kicking her boots up. I think she has boots on, which you can't see, but so I always do shutter drag for when it's crazy because it just shows so much of like the action, I feel. And you get this really cool ambient light too. So in this case, I don't know the data on this, but um, I am one of the weirdos that usually don't use second curtain. I usually just do like I just slow my shutter all the way down and I kill the ambient because you're slowing it down so much, you already have so much ambient light coming in. So your exposure is going to be way blown out. So you just lower the ISO all the way down. F-stop's usually around 4 at a reception picture that's bigger, like more people, because I want to see the faces. I want to see reaction. Um, and then at that point, it's just shooting. I mean, just praying that what you're seeing and feeling in front of you actually comes through. I mean, I hunt photos like this. Like I know this is not the most amazing photo, um, but it is what I was going for as far as like capturing how insane she was with her hair flying everywhere and stuff. But I do sit in the same spot if I see something happening and just keep shooting and wait and wait and wait and hope and wait. So yeah, again, don't give up. Just keep shooting it. I do crouch though, like, and I look through my eyepiece. By the end of the day, I have a big black stripe on my eye because I'm pressed against there so hard. But yeah, I'm not just like what do they call it, spraying or something? I don't know.
Spraying,
I
correct?
am sitting there and like really just holding on to that composition and holding it, hoping it happens. But yeah,
So
definitely.
did remind me, you said this was you had the sphere that was facing the bride. Was
Yeah.
this was just off camera, kind of off behind you at an angle, or did you have this on camera or hand holding? What was that
Oh,
again?
no, no, no. So, almost always it's not hand, it's just me.
Okay.
So I have the light is like back here shooting down behind me
Yep.
onto her, and then there's one you can see right behind her.
Right. Right behind her.
That's
And what
it. Just
settings? Do
cross.
you remember what power you put your lights on for receptions? Are you pretty low so you can
Almost,
get that faster recycle,
like
or?
I said, almost always a 16th.
Okay.
Just because I my ISO is very forgiving now that I have a nicer camera. So especially for receptions, I can pump that ISO up a bit unless I want to crush the background or whatever. But even still, you're throwing that much light onto something that's in the dark. The background's really dark. So you you have a lot of forgiveness with the ISO too. So I go up a little higher in the ISO so I can pump out like a lot more pictures in, 1 or 2 minutes before they stop recycling.
Awesome. No, love it. So I hope that helps some people with their questions that they've ever had on reception lighting. And I do the same type of setup, just a little cross lighting, either with two grids or a grid and a sphere as well. So that's my
I should
typical
mention
go-to.
really quickly that I also do move to get the movement,
Right.
which I didn't, I'm sorry I didn't say that, but I tend to go like that or like this, depending on whatever I want to do while it's shooting. So I lock focus on her, click the shutter and move. So
And
that's
that
how
creates
I'm
the
getting,
trails.
yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. So we're going to go on to another set of two images. These kind of go hand in hand. It's the same couple, just kind of two different looks.
Hmm.
I'd love for you to talk to us about why you use Flash here and what you were hoping to create, and then we'll kind of go through those as well.
Sure. So this couple, I had done their engagement shoot and we just killed it. Like they're one of my favorite engagement shoots ever. Which is great, but it's also like, oh, I hope their wedding photos are really this good. Like I hope they get enough time for formals. In their case, the parents really wanted to do family photos at the church, so that took forever because everybody's in the bathroom. And then we had a 40-minute drive to this park, and she really wanted the fall foliage. So on the drive to the park, the whole way there, my husband's driving, and I'm just like this. I'm like, seriously? Ah. And I'm watching the sun go, and it's like these perfect, like fall streams of light where you can
Oh,
just see the like perfection of light. You know what I mean?
mm,
So, and
definitely.
I just knew. He's like, "Don't worry, we'll have light." I'm like, I just know it's not going to be there when we get there. It's going to be behind the trees. So lesson for anybody who does like sunset, that wants sunset, definitely take into account the trees because they can change your sunset by about an hour. So in this case, so we got there. It wasn't dark. The sky is gray. It's an overcast day. It did have some sun, like I said, but at that point, now the sun's behind the trees. But I had watched it go down because she actually was late and I was there before her. So I watched it go and I watched where it was coming from. And I thought if I put a light back there to mimic what was just happening, I'll get a more authentic feel of real light, of natural light, and also maybe get some of the bokeh coming through the trees still, which in this picture, not so much, but in the other sets you can see. So the light is up in the tree. I think it's clamped probably to a branch or something. And you could see the light coming through the leaves on the right hand
Mm,
side on the bottom of the leaves.
yep.
I wanted that light to come through her veil. So I had them start walking about 20 feet behind the flash so that I could just wait for them to walk into the light and start firing. And it's a basic setup and it's very simple. And again, the grid again. In
Nice.
this case, I was at a 200th of a second at f1.6 with the 85 because I want that crazy looking 85 compression. Um, ISO 500, and I don't know what the flash power is because it didn't record it, but it's probably more at like it might be at like a 16th again, or maybe even lower because it wasn't that dark out. So
Right.
I don't think I had to have it up very high. Sometimes you have to have it up high, but I don't know in this case. I'm
No,
sorry.
I think this image is amazing. So you used just a grid, single grid. Did
Single
you
grid.
gel it to warm it up a
Yes.
bit as well?
I
So
think
like
it's
a
a
CTO
half.
gel or
I think it's a
okay,
half or a full. Um,
nice.
I really wanted some warmth, like a lot of warmth. And I have a hard time with this because I don't push myself out of the comfort zone for this a lot. Because I trust my camera's ability to translate the color really well. And then I feel like I can always like warm it up in post or whatever. It's not the same thing. And I'm learning this, and it's really changing how I shoot. And I have a lot of people to thank for that, in the
Right.
community of you guys that you provide and
Oh,
friends that I've worked with as well that have just been like, you got to start doing this more. So I pushed myself this wedding to do that. I wanted to create the sunset for her, and that's how we got this image. And I think I wanted to show this one because I felt like a lot of people probably look at my work and go, that's so dark for weddings, whatever. Fine. You're light, you like light stuff, you like pretty stuff. That's great. This is that. And this is with one flash. And if you saw the before, which I'm sorry, I wish I had it, it was just flat. It was pretty. It's pretty. You can pull it up and post and make something beautiful out of it, and I probably will with some of the other images, but this was the ones that came out the best were the ones where we added the gel and the light.
no,
So
that's amazing. So do have a question. I'm sure some other people are probably thinking. So you say you had the light in the branch, clamped to a branch. Is it kind of shooting
I
high in
think
that branch? Is that's what creating that
it has
and
those
feathering off to them, or is it kind of shooting through an opening and that those leaves are getting lit up by some of the feathered off light? So can you
so my
explain that a
husband
little
just told
bit?
me
Because
it's actually
yeah,
on a stand. It's on a
okay,
stand, not clamped. And it was like slightly behind the tree and shooting
kind of
through.
behind the trunk, kind of shooting through.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's like to the
perfect.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it was just a
Yeah,
black little stand. I carry around the little stand. I don't use lighting assist. I used to use lighting assistants all the time, and I love them. I love them. But I find that I concentrate really well. Like I don't know if it's like I have ADHD. I don't know. But I find I get distracted too easily if I have to tell people what to do or explain it. So I I worked with Matt Gruber, and he was like, yeah, I just carry around my stand, and he did some amazing stuff at one of my weddings that he second shot with the boob and the CTO gel and made my couple look insanely gorgeous. And there was no sunlight at all, and it was actually after the sun had come. It was dark, and he made it look like sunset, and that's what inspired me to go, why am I not doing this? So big shout out to him for that one.
no, this is a very well done image, and it's I think another just a great example to people who either or haven't really tried because they're just a little hesitant, or even just newer photographers that get just distraught when they have an overcast day and they weren't going to get the sun that they wanted. That you can create the look of sun streaming through the trees very simply and very easily with, like Jen said, a grid and a speed light
And
and a
we
CTO
had,
gel,
I mean, I wish I'd had more time because we could have done so much more, but we only had about 15 minutes with them for all their formals.
which is awesome.
So,
And that speaks to the speed and efficiency of MagMod as well. Just being able to throw a grid on
yes.
there, not have to worry about strapping it on or it falling off, and just be able to get the shots you want and then move it around and create
Yeah,
another image within the same time frame.
can you
So
guys just come out with like magnetic clothing though, so I can just like all over my shirt and stuff? That would be
that's a
great.
good thought. That would be kind of cool. I've suggested a belt. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if the belt it'd be like the magnetic bat belt or something. Be like your utility mag belt. So with your
Yeah.
grids and your spheres and be like Jennifer Batwoman at a wedding.
Oh God. Jennifer
So
is
this next
crazy.
image was the same couple,
Yep.
same situation where you kind of ran out of light and kind of decided to create
hmm
your own light. So talk about this image for us.
This was about 5 minutes later, so it was even darker, and we were walking back to their car, and her veil was so pretty and long, and I never do this shot. I've done it before, but it always looks like really too bridey for me, like too perfect weddingy. Um, so it doesn't excite me, I guess. And I'm just not very good at it. It's really hard to get focus under a veil. and they feel weird, I think. Like the groom's always like, what am I doing? But yeah, so this one I was like, just tough it out. But he was super cool. They're a very energetic, outgoing couple. So again, it was the same exact thing because all I did was take it away from the tree and put it behind them. So my husband's down, I think, like right around where her mouth is. It's pointed up right in there. And I think maybe I could have had it slightly higher or maybe a little more to the left so that we could have gotten a little more rim light on the top of her head. Again, we had like 3 seconds to do this, but I do like how it highlights right down here because the veil is coming right over here and it really gets like your attention toward the mouth, which is they're about to kiss. So, yeah.
And this is same grid from the previous shot, same grid with the CTO. You just basically took that, stopped them, put it behind them, and said, "Hey, let's do this shot," and got a completely different look
I'm a
in the previous
one
image.
trick pony, Tim. One trick pony. I got the
No,
grid and
it's
yeah.
no. I think these are great examples to show our community that you can create very dramatic and beautiful and amazing images with one light and one modifier, and create different looks and create looks like it didn't look like you used flash, and create looks that do look like you use flash, and not have to struggle with carrying around 4 or 5 different speed lights
Oh,
and knowing how
exactly.
to highlight them here. Just one light, learning how to angle it with a CTO and a grid, and create many different looks and give your clients variety of images to be able to just fawn over and love. So I
And the
think these
thing
are
is
great
that
examples to show them that.
they don't know what you're doing. So you can't fail. They will never like this client has no idea that that's what this image is going to look like. You know what I mean? They don't do this for a
Yep,
living.
that's
So
right.
I'm going for drama. That's my aesthetic. I think you could do the same thing if you're going for light and airy. You could do the same type of thing with just a little less flash power, maybe.
Right.
So to make a huge difference on the contrast of the photo. So,
Sure.
but I just, like one thing that I really would love to get across while we're on here is just that, you know, don't let don't let things don't let the fear take over. Don't be afraid. They hired you for a reason. Do your thing, and hopefully it works out for everybody. Um, yeah, that's mainly
No, I
it.
agree. Uh, Definitely. So let's talk about this last image. This is an image that I think was great. I love this image because when they hear how you described your shot, I love that it gives a different look on the being able to create a groom image without having to composite, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 different images to get light on every groom.
Yeah,
Those are great images, and that's what a lot of people are doing to get some dramatic images. But sometimes you just don't have the time, or you just don't want to mess with compositing afterwards. So talk a little
yeah.
bit about how you created this image that looks like it was composited, but it wasn't. It was created in one shot
Is
with
that a
different
good
speed
thing?
lights and different modifiers. Yeah, it's definitely. No,
Okay.
that's a good thing.
So okay, so how do we create this image? So first of all, this bride and groom had the most hectic day ever. One of their bridesmaids had a seizure during prep and had to go to the hospital, and the bride was just late. So this was like an hour and a half late ceremony for a sunset ceremony. So we had no time for anything. They had to go straight into reception. And of course, I'm losing my mind because I'm like, they hired me for a reason. Like, I have to do these shots. Like, we have to do the quintessential shot of everybody together. We did the whole setup for all of them as well. But I liked this one the best. So my second photographer that day was Andy Ludwig. He's amazing, from Abigail Ginger Ale. They're awesome couple. And I love when he shoots for me because he just has this like ball of energy of always trying to help solve problems. And hi, buddy. Hi. So I think that's like pinnacle, by the way. Get rid of that ego and call on your friends and trust them and let them help you because I don't think I could have done this shot without him. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted the couches. I knew I wanted the groomsmen to be posed like this. Um, I knew that I wanted a backlight and I knew that I wanted gridded lights on either side, right? Which is my go-to. Up, pointed down, gridded light gives them a nice like contrast on their face. In this case, because we had 7 people, we knew that we had to light it with, we had a softer light so we could cover all the faces. Because with the gridded, I probably wouldn't get everybody's face lit. So what I tend to do to kind of like mimic the gridded look, but still get everybody lit, is I get the lights even closer to them and more to the side, and they skim across. And I learned this trick a long, long time ago. You can take one big light and skim it across 18 faces and get them all lit. You just have to have the right angle. So in this case, we had two smaller lights with the awesome MagMod stuff, and skimming across with grid and soft, the sphere. In the back, I wanted to backlight all of them so we could separate because it's a super dark background. And even in this photo, it's hard to see. A little larger, it's easier to see. But on a smaller scale, it crushes it down a little, I think. But so we had a flashback there. We were shooting it. We did it like 100 times. And then Andy was like, wait, I saw that you have the mag beam in your bag. And I was like, oh yeah, I never use that thing. Because honestly, I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with it. So I've been a little afraid of it. So he pulls it out and he's like, I'm pretty sure that if you put the wide angle on, it spreads the light further. I was like, okay, well, I don't know anything about it, so help me out. So he put it back there and spread that light out, and as soon as it went off, I was like, oh my God, it's lighting everything up. This is amazing. One light directly behind the groom, only about 15 feet away, not even, lit up pretty much all of them from behind.
Right.
And that is something to me that's like invaluable, because if you are in a small space, you need to have solutions to these problems. In this case, the outside was the only place we could do these photos, and even that was like tight right there. So, and then he had his little aerosol stuff, so we decided to throw that in there because I kind of thought these guys looked a little vampiric, like, I don't know if that's a word, but they have like these like, look at their faces, they all look a little badass, right? And then the groom has this maroon vest on, so it kind of works to like that night thing. And then they all gave me face, which was really cool. So it works. Yeah, it works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, it's a great example of using three lights to really create that kind of composite look and get all of your subjects evenly lit and still create a dramatic image without having to worry about going out and post later and brushing them all back in. And
I don't think, other than color grading this a little bit to make it look a little more eerie, I don't think I did anything to their faces. This is out of camera. Like, it's pretty out of camera. The only one that looks a little off is the guy all the way to the left with the like dark shadow.
Right.
I don't really know why. I've actually tried to figure out, I'm like, why did that happen to him? But it could be that he was just positioned slightly off or something. It doesn't really bother me. It's just interesting. I'm like, oh, why did that happen? But yeah, I think it works.
No, it definitely works. Awesome. So, well, Jen, that's the last image. Again, I appreciate your time and thank you for, sharing a little bit of your knowledge with our community today and just letting them know that, try things out and don't be afraid to use just one light, because you can create, different images and different looks using just one light and not have to lug around 3 different stands and 3 different lights to light them from the front and back and side and all those other things that a lot of people that are new to Flash worry about.
This is kind of, maybe it's, I don't mean to knock anybody who does, but I have seriously stopped using a lighting assistant. But it's just because I can do this stuff. I can do it on my own and I can think, and trust me, there are days where I'm like, why didn't I bring an assistant? But for the most part, I can carry most of the stuff around myself, and I really enjoy that it's not bogging me down at all.
Nice.
If I could make sure to remember them instead of leaving them everywhere.
Leaving them everywhere. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Why don't you tell everyone your website and your Instagram, so that if they want to follow you or check you out, they can go to those sites and watch as you create more work and just really admire the work you produce. And also this is recorded, guys, so we'll edit it up and then we'll post it back in the group for viewing later, and it'll also be on our YouTube for anyone that wants to watch it again and just revisit our interview today. So website and Instagram, Jen.
All right, so this is really hard. It's Karma Pants. You just have to Google it. We're the only one. You just look it up. Every single thing that we do is just Karma Pants because nobody else has that name. So we go to Instagram, it's Karma Pants, karmapants.com, Karma Pants at Gmail, whatever. It's all the same. So
Awesome.
fun. I
Perfect.
just wanted to say something really quickly,
Yep.
like a little shout out. I just really appreciate that you've been focusing on some really creative women in the last couple months. It means a lot because there's a lot going on right now, and I just wanted to say thank you for doing
Oh,
that. It's huge.
thank
Yeah.
you. Well, we got a lot of creative women in our industry and a lot of creative women in our community, and we just, we love what they do and what you guys have been producing, and we love that you use MagMod. And so obviously we want to just host anybody and everybody that's creative, and yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for that.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
that. So
Thank you.
awesome. Well, guys, again, thank you, Jen. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And again, we'll have her posted later for you guys and on YouTube. And then stay tuned for next month. We got Cami Grudzinski. She'll be on our How I Shot It next month in December. We're excited about her being on here as well. So awesome. Take care, Jen. Thanks again.
Thank you.